Hello, this is Mayor Chris Bollwage. Welcome to another edition of Our City. Keep in mind that residents can check out all of our social media accounts to learn about any events going on in the city of Elizabeth. As we all know, COVID numbers are way down. However, it has not gone away. COVID testing, you can visit elizabethnjvaccine.org if you want to schedule a vaccine or if you have any questions. Personal responsibility is extremely important. And if you need any more information, whether you have a cold, whether you have issues, you want to ask questions, just call our Public Information Office at 908-820-4124, and we'll help you out to the best of our ability. Now, tonight's show is extremely special. I'm pleased to be joined by Mr. Stephen Halle, the commanding officer of the USS New Jersey. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having us, Mayor.
And Mr. Stephen Hutton, President and Chairman of the New Jersey Submarine Commissioning Organization. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
You know, they always talk about baseball and football as one of the first. I never had two Steves on the show at the same time.
Steve and Steve show.
Yeah, this is the first. So, first of all, tell us about yourself, where you're from, where you came up, how you got involved with what you're doing now.
Okay.
You want to go first?
Sure. Actually, I'm from England originally.
I couldn't tell.
I know. I have a little bit of an accent. I came over to the States a long time ago. I'm a U.S. citizen. I actually joined what's called the Navy League. And the Navy League were invited to attend the original naming ceremony in Liberty State Park, where the name of the new submarine was announced. And because of that, I thought it was the appropriate thing for our Navy League Council to actually start forming a commissioning committee.
Good. Commander?
Yeah, so joined the Navy back in 1999, enlisted right out of boot camp from the North Chicago suburbs area, right by Great Lakes, which were where our boot camp is located. Got picked up for an officer program early in my training phase. Got commissioned in 2004. Served on several submarines leading up to my commanding officer tour. Just took command of PCU New Jersey because we're still a pre-commissioned unit. PCU New Jersey back in December of 2022. And just enjoying being part of the crew and watching the construction go through final phases and get ready to deliver here coming up soon.
So that ship has not, the submarine has not been launched yet.
It actually has. It's been floated off and launched to go pier side. So right now, New Jersey is sitting pier side in the water with the final construction phases while she's along the pier.
And where is it? Where is it in New Jersey right now? No,
it's located in Newport News at the Huntington Ingalls Newport News shipyard, which is right in the Norfolk, Virginia area. It's just north of where the Norfolk Naval Operating Base is at.
So I'm a layperson, as you can tell. But thank you for your service, first
Absolutely.
of all. But tell us, you joined the Navy in 1999 at a boot camp, but you were not commissioned to 2007. You said, what does that difference mean?
Yeah, so I was commissioned in 2004. So I originally enlisted.
Does that mean you got an office or?
Yeah, I got commissioned as an ensign.
As an ensign, okay.
So I was the first grade as an officer. So I started my training pipeline. So much like many of the crew that came with us today to visit Elizabeth, I was a nuclear operator. That school and training between boot camp, A school, power school, and all that training is about 2 years. So I got through that initial phase of training, and then at the end of it, I got selected for an officer program. That sent me to college. So I remained enlisted. This is the program's been enhanced since I went through in the early 2000s. And I maintained on active duty, but went to college classes, worked with the ROTC unit to get a commission. So that took me about 3 years to get was about a 4 to 4.5 year engineering degree from the University of Illinois. So then once I completed that degree, got awarded my Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering, I then got awarded a commission through the ROTC unit.
Okay. So who wants to tell us the history of the USS New Jersey? So you're going to be who's the historian in this group, or am I waiting for the second half of that group?
So to hit some high points. So the namesake New Jersey. So we're going to be the third commissioned ship with that title. The most infamously known is BB-62, which is right now a museum moored in Camden.
That was the one that was in World War II, correct?
World War II, the Vietnam War, Korean War.
Yeah, and actually, I think their most recent, firings were around the Gulf War, and so she had a very long life, and only recently turned into a museum, which is it's a great sort of testament to what kind of the New Jersey name. There's a lot of the Big J, the Black Dragon. There's a lot of history behind what the battleship was able to do in times of combat and conflict. So that's kind of neat for us to have such a rich history to tie into the submarine. So it's been great for
So the second USS New Jersey, is that kind of just forgotten?
That was the BB-62, the battleship.
It was the second one.
The very first one was part of the Great White Fleet. Never saw any action, unfortunately. Was sunk as target practice, I believe, eventually. But
It was sunk in target practice.
As target practice.
I didn't
yeah.
know this. So.
Yeah, that was the very first USS New Jersey, after she'd been decommissioned, obviously.
And that was World War One-ish, or even earlier than that?
She was, I guess she was around during World War One, but she was commissioned prior to World War One, I believe. I don't have the exact dates.
No, but okay.
on hand, but-
Oh. And this is the first time it's going to be a submarine, though, right?
This is definitely the first time it'll be a submarine, and it may even be commissioned kind of alongside with the battleship.
Oh, really? Oh, that'd be
So
nice.
that's still what the commissioning committee is still working, and
Can
we're
it get
working
in
to
those
figure
waters?
out. Well, that's a lot of what's
Potentially.
potentially. Yeah.
It's being explored. We don't know for sure if that's going to work out or not, but that's certainly one idea that people are kicking around.
I'm sure we can find some dredging company to dredge out there to get that.
Well, the idea is actually to move the battleship. Apparently she has to be moved at some point anyway. Some cleaning operations have to take place on the hull, I believe. So there's a possibility of the two events taking place, the commissioning of the new submarine with the battleship being relocated. But it's all up in the air right now, so I'm not making any promises at all about that.
So, Commander, tell us about the capability, the size, the length, the et cetera. How many men and women are on the vessel?
Yep. So first of all, she's a Virginia-class submarine. The Virginia-class was being built in several blocks. So she's a Block 4 Virginia-class, so a few design upgrades along the large contract of build. So she's 377 feet long and has a 34-foot beam. A lot of her operations, she can dive deeper than 500 feet, and her speed is very comparable for most nuclear-powered propulsion submarines. So she's a fast attack submarine, very quiet. The Virginia class has some improved acoustic stealth, quieting capabilities, and the SSN in the 796 stands for submarine nuclear powered. As opposed to like an SSK, which would be a diesel powered. So her propulsion plant is all powered by a reactor plant. So that allows us to stay submerged for sustained periods of time. And the only real limiting endurance is, what kind of food we can bring on board and how long that food can last us. We make our own oxygen, we make our own water, and that's why we can stay submerged indefinitely, limited by food. So a lot of new, amazing, technology. Both our forward electronic computer systems that interfaces with our sonar system. We have the ability to launch torpedoes, land attack cruise missiles, and then a myriad of other unmanned systems, and all that's being sort of tested and operationally, developed with the Navy systems now.
How do you make your own water?
So we take the seawater. We have 2 reverse osmosis desalination plants
On the ship.
on the ship, and so that it removes the salt and any impurities. So we make deionized water, pure water. We then just split the water molecule into hydrogen and oxygen. Once it's split, we then use the oxygen that's off gas, and that's what we breathe. And then separately, more concerning than even having the oxygen, we develop CO2 as we breathe. So we also have other atmospheric control equipment that will actually remove or scrub the CO2 from the atmosphere, so that we can, because if it builds up too long, it becomes a poisonous gas. And so then we scrub the CO2, we remove that. Many of our systems are very analogous to that NASA uses to maintain, their atmospheres, specifically, the idea of scrubbing the atmosphere to keep the CO2 from getting high levels and to ensure that we have oxygen replenished.
Wow. fascinates me. Your duties on the ship or the commander, you're the boss, that type of thing? Okay.
Yes. Underway, the boss. I normally have a direct representative who's the officer of the deck. He's in the command and control center for the whole submarine. He's a direct report to me, or if I station a command duty officer, which is typically the executive officer. So, when we're underway, all the operations of the ship are ran through me. And my night orders if the command duty officer is stationed. And then we just oversee the operations, everything from periscope depth operations, communications on and off the ship, or whatever mission profile we may be operating under.
No idea what the missions would be, right? You just didn't any idea what the USS New Jersey will do once you're commissioned?
Well, New Jersey will do similar missions to the current Virginia classes that are operating in and out of Groton, Connecticut, and Norfolk. Typically, we would support like an Eastern European Command deployment, much like I've done on previous submarines of Virginia class. So we would do something very similar to that. A lot of peacetime mission support, as well as just presence, deployed so that if at a moment's notice, we would need to answer a conflict, we would be there.
It's pretty cool. What are you going to do? You're not going on a ship.
Hopefully, I'll be able to tour the submarine. I've only seen the outside of her so far. She's a beauty.
Do they do tours for lay people, by the way, of a new vessel? Do they let folks?
Yeah, so there are opportunities, like, if we get involved with a fleet week, we can do unclassified tours to allot some personnel down. It's a lot harder in the shipbuilding because we're in an industrial environment, so kind of safety takes precedence, so we wouldn't do tours of the shipyard per se. But a good time is like during commissioning, there'll be a time set aside and reserved for us to open up for tours. And so we'll have a predefined, tour route, and we'll ensure that, the allowed unclassified spaces can be toured.
How many men and women on this ship?
So about, somewhere between 130 to 140, depending on the day. We always have, sailors coming and going. And so that number varies. For sea trials, when we first test, we'll actually have additional riders that will probably amount to as many as 190, 200. And so we'll have a lot of temporary berthing systems sort of set up. And so, but our general crew size is around 135.
And being a layperson, there's something for all 130 to do all day.
Well, so typically, there are a few.
So it's like a night shift on a submarine.
Exactly. No. So normally we have like an executive staff that may not be assigned to a specific shift. That'd be myself, maybe the chief of the boat, who we'll get to hear from later, and a few other our independent duty corpsmen, who's our dock underway. But for the most part, everyone on board is assigned to one of three sections. So we operate in 3 8-hour rotations, and so. There's always going to be, about a third of the crew that are on watch at their station, which may be a panel, a screen, a roving watch, and they're ensuring the safe operations of the submarine. And then they get relieved. There's another, shift that comes on. So then they get some off time to do a little bit of personal items, but also take care of like administration, maybe working out or whatnot. They get a meal in between that relief period. And then then you would finally get rest before you come back on shift. So we're on again 24-hour clock split into 3 sections, and then each section is got his own his or her own watch station that they're overseeing.
So we're going to cut you guys loose. We got 2 more coming on the second half. Tell me who they are, Commander.
Okay, so you're going to be talking with the chief of the boat, who's in a lot of other communities also referred to as like a CMC, Command Master Chief. So he's been a Master Chief in the Navy. He actually joined the Navy a couple weeks shortly after me, back in '99. So he has a lot of experience, been on several submarines, more submarines than I have. Also done strategic deterrent patrols on SSBNs. And so he is him and the executive officer, together us three, we make up the triad. So kind of the executive team
committee, right,
that runs the ship. And so CMC, or COB, takes care of a lot of the personnel issues, all of the sort of manning, watch bill, make sure the sailors are paid for, cared for. He also checks on the morale, welfare of the sailors. So it's a heavy lift and a big part of the triad, as we call it,
okay,
of the team that kind of run the ship.
Stephen, I want to thank you for scheduling this with the
Pleasure.
with the school kids that we did today.
Oh, they were
and,
fantastic.
oh yeah,
What a
and
great reception.
The questions that were asked was just absolutely.
And I think we got a
without
few
your
recruits.
Organization, you did. I saw the kids raising their hands.
Yep.
And, without people like you, we wouldn't have been able to have that educational experience.
It's a joy. I really
thank you.
enjoy working with the Navy folks and bringing them up here. So I appreciate your inviting us today.
I want to thank Mr. Stephen Halle, the commanding officer of the USS New Jersey, and Mr. Stephen Hutton, president and chairman of the New Jersey Submarine Commissioning Organization, for the first segment of this show. Please stay with us, where we'll be joined in the next 15 minutes as well with members from the USS New Jersey. Welcome back to our city. I'm joined in the second half of the show by the chief of the USS New Jersey, the chief of the boat, Mr. Hamilton Felt. Welcome to the show. And also Ensign Lillian Baker. Ms. Baker, welcome to the show. And first of all, thank you for your service. First question is, tell us about yourself, where you came up, how you wound up here. Lillian, you want to go first?
Sure thing. So I'm originally from Great Falls, Virginia. I went to the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, graduated in 2021, joined the Navy because I just really wanted to serve, joined the submarine force out of the academy. So I went to our nuclear training in Charleston, South Carolina for a little over a year. After that, a couple months of training in Groton, Connecticut, and now I am in Newport News with the New Jersey.
Sounds pretty good. Go ahead.
I enlisted in the United States Navy back in 1999. I'm originally from a small town in Washington named Snohomish. It's just north of Seattle.
That is small.
It is small. Have you been there, sir?
No, it's just never heard of it. That's why it's small.
Yeah, it's a small town right outside of a major Navy installation, but little known. I joined the Navy because I've always wanted to be in the Navy. The Navy was the only real option for me. I joined submarines because early on in my career, I joked that I got bamboozled by the recruiter, but it turned out being the best decision of my life.
We had my former business administrator was in a submarine in the 60s, and the joke here was the only good Marine is a submarine.
That's true.
I don't know if that's true or that's something that goes around, but that's something we used here in the lace people.
It's definitely true, but at the end of the day, Marines and sailors, we're all the same. We got each other's back.
I had an uncle, my mother's brother, served in the Seabees.
Okay.
Served in World War II at the end, Korea, and then Vietnam at the age of 40. And he told so many stories about the work. It's true. And I had an uncle who was a gunnery sergeant in the Marines. So I kind of listened to stories growing up about the two of them. And when they got together, they always were picking on each other. They never understood it.
It's just what we do.
Just what you do.
Yeah.
So can you give me some insight on the position, your position in the Navy right now? Enjoying it? What are you doing?
Okay. I've been doing this
And
Navy
what do you
thing.
do on the ship, really?
Okay. I've been in the Navy for 24 years. I've been on board 7 different submarines. The first 20 years of my career, I was a sonar technician. So I would put headphones on and I would listen for other submarines and warships under the water, be able to classify them so that we can put the right ordnance on the right targets. The last 4 years, I've been the senior enlisted advisor to the commanding officer, who you just spoke to a little bit earlier. And my job is basically the crew safety, morale, welfare, and to ensure that the submarine as a weapon is ready to be used by the officers like Ms. Baker when the time comes and we need to accomplish a mission.
So, Ensign, tell me about your role as well. What is your role on? I don't understand the hierarchy of the military, so you have to excuse my ignorance.
So I'm a relatively, actually, in fact, our newest officer on board. So every officer starts in engineering. I'm in our engineering department. I'm in training to learn how to oversee the operation of our reactor plant so that it can be safely operated to make our boat go and do the mission that we're designed to do. So right now, my job looks like a lot of training and learning. I'll take over a division in our engineering department and lead a division of sailors who also work in engineering, and so that's what my job looks like right now.
So your partner here has been on 20 years in submarines. Have you been on submarines that long as well, or just your first submarine?
This is my first submarine.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Okay. So the first submarine designed and built for an integrated crew. Maybe I'll start with you, Ensign. What does integrated mean in the Navy today in a submarine? How many men, how many women?
Yeah. So when we talk about integrated within the submarine force, we're talking about men and women. Female officers have been on board submarines for about 10 years at this point, but it's very new that we're bringing female enlisted sailors on board, and that's really a function of the way our submarines have been designed in terms of berthings. You know, it's a small space and we have a lot of people packed in there. Made it harder to have men and women on board, and so our submarine, the New Jersey, is built such that we have berthings for men and women, officer and enlisted.
Together?
Well, male berthings, female berthings, officer, enlisted.
Well, the reason I asked that
yeah.
question is because we had to deal with that in our firehouses. On a much smaller scale than you're dealing with it, but we have our first female firefighters, and our firehouses weren't built for separate quarters. So I'm just curious, is the USS New Jersey built with actual separate, you call it berthings, I guess? Yeah. So they're totally separate.
Yeah, it's
I met an 18-year-old girl outside
Yes, sir.
Yep.
who just joined, and she's going to be in a submarine at 8.
Yes, sir.
I was like, wow.
She is.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
She's the first of her. She's the first of the breed as far as it goes for the fast attack submarines. So the Navy has had enlisted females on submarines for about the last 5 years, 6 years or so. But as far as the forward deployed role, 6 months at a time, frontline missions, the New Jersey is the first to be able to do it. So by the end of this month, I expect to have 26 female sailors on board. So right now, we've got 146 people on board. We will have 26 of them being female sailors. 5 officers, 1 chief petty officer, and approximately 20 enlisted sailors.
And she's 18, and she's going to learn a lot quickly then.
Yes, sir.
So how is the boat adapted for an integrated crew? Just in the berthing issues, or are there other issues as well besides the quarters?
So there's no adaptation really required on our part, right? When you join the United States Navy, when you join any branch of the military, you're first and foremost a professional. And the men and women that serve with us on board our submarine or on any vessel in the United States Navy, they are raised first to be professionals. And that just kind of comes with the business of being a sailor. So to my sailors on board, there is no difference. We're all trained the exact same way. We treat everybody equally.
So what's it like being under the ocean for an experience, a long time? You've done it. 20 different submarines, right, or whatever?
7 submarines. So
7?
For
20 years.
20
7
years, yes, sir. It's a unique experience. It's like being on the longest flight you've ever taken.
I don't like 2-hour flights.
There's a lot more creature comforts that kind of come with it. Like the captain said, we make our own oxygen, we make our own water. We get creative with what we do with the food while we're on board. You get the opportunity to
Very little waste, I take it, right?
I'm sorry.
Very little waste.
Very little waste.
Right. Yeah.
Right? We are notorious for making things last longer because we never know when our mission is actually going to be over.
Sure.
Right? If you have to stay on station a little bit longer, you figure it out. The waves don't really affect you because you're underneath them. You don't really worry about the sunshine or whether or not the clouds are the clouds are out or the weather conditions, because they don't really affect you most of the time.
And so one of the things with those young people here today, what would you give? They were a little young. They were 6th graders. That 18-year-old young lady that I met today who's just joining the... What do you give young people advice? What do you say to them about joining the Navy and then again joining a submarine crew?
Absolutely. Well, I always share the positive experience that I've had in the Navy so far, all the opportunities it's afforded me, and sort of I think the job satisfaction of going to work every day, working with a great group of people, learning a lot. That excites me, and that's sort of community dependent. But I tell young people that it's going to be hard, because it is. But I think telling people that in and of itself makes it rewarding and exciting to do something challenging. and to know that you're going to work each day and doing something really important for our country.
Have you been on a submarine yet?
I have been on a submarine briefly for training, but I obviously do not have the same experiences as Cobb or as our CO. So.
Okay. And what was your longest time under the water for?
The longest time I've spent submerged was 110 days.
Straight,
Yes, sir.
without coming up?
Yes, sir.
110 days?
Yes, sir.
My goodness. I'm just curious to know your missions in under the water 110 straight days. There's got to be stress on the organization. You can't go out and play golf or play baseball or
Yes, sir.
what? Do you have TVs under there?
There are TVs and there are.
Can you watch a Super Bowl if you were stuck there or something like that? If you were interested.
No, I mean.
These may sound silly questions to you, but I'm just curious. What do you do?
No, they're great questions. So we have, like every other corporation in America, there are contracts that are met. We receive a lot of the movies, like your big flicks, your Guardians of the Galaxy, like John Wick, all of those kind of movies. We get them quicker than they come to like DVD or than they start streaming. So they usually get them to the military first, so that we can provide them to our crew while we go underway on deployment. So we carry a whole lot of movies. Everyone usually has hard drives or DVDs or copies of movies, and we have multiple TVs and entertainment systems on board. There are sailors that bring guitars underway. There are some sailors that learn how to cross stitch or to darn or crochet. You get creative. There's a lot of readers. We have college available underwater so that we can both better ourselves professionally and personally. So there are a lot of options out there to be able to keep people ready, and that's part of my job as the COB, to ensure that we have these programs in place so that people don't get bored, because anyone, particularly sailors, when they get restless, they find interesting ways to buy their time.
It just 110 days. I don't know what I could do with myself for 110 days on the water. Seriously, I don't personally think it's...
I didn't know what I would do until I was there either. But every day just turns into another, and you just do things in life day for day.
Well, I really thank you for your service and your commitments. And Ensign, I thank you for your leadership as well, especially what do you think if you're going to be under there for 110 days? You haven't been under yet for once, and I'm just...
Yeah, well, I think you'd get a lot done, first of all, and hopefully, see some cool stuff, get to run some exciting missions, and just do the job that we signed up for, because ultimately, join the submarine force to be operational and go out there and do the mission. So
Can you call home? Do cell phones work, anything like that? Or no, right? Not at all.
Nope. No cell phones.
No cell phones.
No, sir.
100. Like if you're in the Army, you could be hanging out somewhere and use a cell phone and call. You guys are underwater for 110 days. You can't call anybody.
Every transmission that leaves the boat is a possible detection.
Detection, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're not allowed to do that, just
Nope.
playing in the rules. That's
Part of what makes us so strong. Nobody knows we're there.
That's right, exactly. Well, I had a lot of service people. My father was in the Army in Korea, and I told you about my uncles. Our generation, however, we were born and came of age at the end of Vietnam. Not a lot of people were interested in serving at that time, at least in my group. But it's an interesting way of life that I appreciate, that people like you take the time to do it and make it a career out of it. The rest of us can do what we do. So thank you very, very much for your service. And thank you for taking the time to join me here today.
Thanks, sir.
I want to thank Mr. Hamilton Felt, the chief of the boat, Miss Lillian Baker, the ensign, as well as the Commander Stephen Halle and Mr. Stephen Hutton, for joining me on the show this evening and talking to our residents about life in a submarine, especially the newly commissioned USS New Jersey. I'm Mayor Chris Bollwage. We'll see you next week on another edition of Our City.